so privileged and honoured to have the three ladies from Organised Chaos from here to there. Today we've got Christine, Rankin, Monica Moore and Julia Grace here on LinkedIn Live, and they have all got a story to tell of their own lives. Obviously starting with Monica first up. For those of you who don't know Monica Moore, she's the lady down in the corner wearing the pink floppy earrings, and I didn't get the memo about earrings today, because neither did Julia, because Christine and Monica are wearing the same. Monica, you've just recently released a book, and we'll come back to you on that. But first of all, I just want to congratulate you on becoming the president of the Professional Speakers Association New Zealand. So well done on that. And Julia, I believe that you took up the vice president role, and just a little secret, I hear you got shafted because you're going to be doing the most work. But Julia Grace is also a mental wellness advocate and keynote speaker. And we've got Christine, who is all the way down in Taupo. And for those of you who don't know Christine, I'm sure you do, but Christine is known for having wonderful long legs, and she has got even more graciously beautiful as she's got older. So welcome, ladies, welcome today. And we're going to be talking about putting some joy back into people's lives, and what a perfect way to start that off with Monday. So let's kick off with you, Monica. Looking at your LinkedIn today, thrilled to get this review from a recent event we presented at, and that was for Dress for Success. So talk to me about, first of all, how did Organised Chaos from here to there even get started? I mean, where did you guys meet, and what's this all about?
Oh, kia ora, good morning, and thank you for inviting us along today. We're thrilled to be here with the wonderful Catherine Cook from the Engine Room. How did Organised Chaos start? Well, it started through a series of events. It started off, I think, with Julia and I having a wine over at Hobsonville one day, just making discussions and thinking perhaps we could work together. And from that morphed into another meeting at the commercial, what's the commercial building? It's it's in the viaduct, the new commercial, is that what it's called? Commercial Bay, that's it. And a conversation there that then morphed into Christine having bought my book and being a wonderful advocate of it, us having a chat, and then it just morphed into us forming Organised Chaos. We call ourselves disruptive innovators. We believe we have a strong message. We had our very first inaugural event on the 6th of August at a charity lunch for Dress for Success. And it's a wonderful organisation. We really wanted to support it. From there, we had some fantastic feedback and some bookings for an upcoming workshop. So we're absolutely thrilled that it's gone so well. We also offered a tool that you can download off, it's sitting on my website at the moment, and that's for team building. Each of us have a strength in mine's communication, Julia's is well-being, and Christine's leadership. But together we morph in with this Organised Chaos, which is a theory. It's a theory that comes from science and maths, and it says that the world is made up, or the universe, of complex systems, and you can connect with those systems and you can find your way through from here to there. However, they quite often loop back and change again. So that's where we talk about you need to be able to constantly organize the chaos. And we have lots of tips and tricks and tools to be able to do that. So that's who we are and how we are.
Oh, that's great, Monica. And if I can start with you, Julia, I mean, mental wellness, it's quite a hot topic at the moment, and more so because, you know, we've not ever prepared to be locked down in our homes, and we've got people trying to manage working and looking after their kids and being the teachers, and then people that are isolated. You know, there's a lot of people that are just on their own, and then we're faced with all this negativity. Like, I just opened up Google today, and it's got, why does so much negativity exist, and how negative news distorts our thinking, and 16 eye-opening negative news statistics you need to know. And I'm just like, I just want to shut it down, and breaking news and all this kind of stuff. So talk me through how you filter, and I say that word filter because it's really an important part of how we get through every day at the moment.
Absolutely. And not only can we filter physically, we can actually filter, mentally as well. And I think we're literally being bombarded. I flicked open the Herald yesterday and, we've got the stuff we're expecting. Okay. We've got, our COVID updates and things like that. And we've got other things happening around the world. And then suddenly someone's decided today is a great day to pop up an article saying that the Harbour Bridge is structurally unsound and only going to last another 3 years. And I'm thinking, why are you adding this to us today? Could you just have kept that little bit of news, later? Sometimes I wonder if they actually do these things on purpose. And it's a great example of the fact that we don't need to know everything. There are some things that are important for our, daily understanding of what's going on in the world, but a lot of stuff we actually don't need to know. And I think it's really important to understand that we are not normally having this much time to consume this much news, right? We don't normally have this many updates. We don't normally check in on so many things. And so we can so easily go down the rabbit hole of thinking that this is normal. And actually this is not. What is normal is that we get on with our everyday life and a little bit of news comes flooding into us. So as far as filtering goes, I would say actually setting yourself some boundaries is one of the most important things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Monica told a beautiful story on one of our latest YouTube videos about a friend of hers, and a little girl said, Dad, there's so much bad news and I'm feeling overwhelmed and stressed. And he took her out to their gravel driveway, and it's a long driveway, and he picked up a handful of rocks, a little bit of gravel, and he said, honey, this is the bad news. And if you look down that drive and see all the gravel, that's all the rest of the world, to get some kind of perspective. And that story's really stuck with me. I think it's a beautiful one. At the moment, we're sitting with this handful and it's right by our faces. And sometimes we've got to put that handful down. So get involved with other things that are going to distract us, that are keeping our mind on more practical things. I like to say, stop, drop, and solve. Stop it, drop what you're doing, and find something practical to get your mind distracted from all the bad news.
Absolutely, and I love what you're saying, and having those boundaries is just so key critical. And also, even I'm talking to my clients about adopting a routine, and don't worry if that routine gets out of kilter. Just be kind to yourself. Now, if we talk about the bridge, Christine, is it time for all of us to migrate to Taupo? We were just talking before we came on, and I love coming to Taupo. You've got the beautiful springs down there, and I walk out of there feeling like silk. And the summer concerts, I mean, let's face it, what a great place to have a concert. You've got the waterways there, and just that really great field. So Christine, you of all people, you've been in the firing line of bad news. You former chief executive of WIN, and I mean, we've all been in the firing line at some point, but how did you deal with that, Christine? I mean, going from trying to do what you can to create opportunities, but dealing with this barrage of people wanting to pull you down all the time.
Yeah, it was it was a pretty terrible time. I had a glittering career for something like 20 years, and suddenly it had what I describe as a death-defying crash. And I don't think anyone else in New Zealand has experienced what I had or what I have, because it still goes on today in little pockets, because people believe what they were fed at the time. And it really was misinformation. To me, it was a travesty. It destroyed an amazing career. But it's also given me a lot of gifts. And I do have resilience. I think I've probably had it since I was little, because I had a pretty awful family situation, and I was always the one that woke up every morning thinking today was going to be a better day, and it never was. But I think you need to take, I mean, mine was extreme pressure every day. Every news media outlet, I was the discussion in New Zealand. I was the most hated woman in New Zealand. That's a pretty big thing to survive. And it wasn't a week or a month or a year. It was 2.5 intense years where I led the news every day in a bad way. But, at the time, I concentrated on what I loved. I absolutely absorbed myself in my work. I loved that work. I loved those 6,000 people who worked for me, and I was intensely involved. And every day I tried to block out the rest of it and concentrate on what I knew my job was, which was to make a difference to New Zealanders who were in need. And it's taught me a lot. Today, when something pops up that's bad, I do what Julia talks about exactly. And we'd never discussed it before, but I stop and I think about, is this really bad? Can I manage this? Can I do something about it? And that works for me. I do have a little panic immediately, but I stop and I can manage all kinds of things. But, you know, it doesn't make you immune to pain or to problems or to issues. I sometimes feel like my life's a soap opera. I look and think, God, does this happen to anybody else? But you can manage it. It's about thinking it through.
Look, absolutely, I totally agree. And with pain comes an opportunity of learning, and that's what you're saying is around the gifts. And look, I've also had the same adversity. Like I talk to my clients before I even engage with them, and I talk to them about where I've come from. And mine also comes from my childhood as well. You know, I think, you know, growing up as a child of the 70s, my mum raised us all on her own, but she worked 3 jobs to do so. And we lived in a state house. You know, I don't live in a state house now, but I have an affinity for people that do live in state houses and the stigma that goes with it. And I carried that stigma with me, and I didn't have, because my mum was so busy working, I didn't have that role model to tell me that everything was going to be okay. And so for most of my childhood, I was worried about whether I'd live another day, you know, and that was real. And but I just kept looking and watching, and I knew I didn't want to have the life that my mother had of working really hard. But then I ended up working hard. I did 3 jobs until I was 22, bought my own home at 22, continued doing 3 jobs. So that's all I've ever known is to work hard. But I guess through adversity, we're in a better place to be able to help others, and they trust us better when we actually share our journey. And Christine, I'm like you, I'm absolutely appalled that this behaviour still continues today, about how people get treated and the vulnerability. What most people don't know is that I had 3 companies, and well, in fact, when I say most people don't know, most people do know. I had 3 companies, but I lost them all, and I lost them through the potential fraud of another. And you know, I remember sitting on my couch going, how can I get up? How can I live? And it was a real feeling of actually being cemented on the couch. And if it wasn't for the people around me supporting me and a network of really, I mean, my friend, you know, she's my best friend, she's in Napier, and she flew up immediately with somebody, and she stayed with me and helped me navigate basically all the things that I needed to kind of work through. But just that feeling of just not being able to move. But once I realized only I could help myself, and I got off that couch and I started getting up, walking, and building those walls of resilience around me, I was able to move on. So just talking about that, I mean, obviously you've all had some kind of adversity. That's why we're all here. I kind of feel like, you know, how people want to be the 4th wiggle. Well, can I be the 4th organised chaos lady? But you know, feeling pain and coming back to you, Monica, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, because we've all been there, right? And how do you deal with that, Monica? I mean, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, I just happened in my book. I talk about what I like to call the 3 pops. Your position of perspective. So stop and think, well, what's my perspective on this? This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But if I was somebody else, if I was in a concentration camp, it would be like, well, actually, I'll take this. However, we shouldn't always minimize what we're going through, because what we're going through is difficult for us.
It's real.
So I always suggest that people have a point of wallowing. I think, well, I'm going to stay on this couch, as you were talking about. I'm going to stay here for 30 minutes and absolutely wallow in it. Actually, a friend who happened to be a dentist told me once that he used to go to the sea and sit, just look at the sea and go, oh, every bad, horrible feeling. And as he watched the waves coming forward, it would subside. And he laughed and said he struggled with a bit of depression, that he used to be with a patient and say, just one moment, and he'd go out there, because having this wave of feeling really low, Fortunately, he was just around the corner from the beach. He'd hop out there, sit on the beach and just look at those waves for 10 minutes until it subsided. And sometimes he did that 3 or 4 times a day. So you give yourself permission to wallow and really address those points of pain. And just remembering that we learn so much from the seasons. You know, the spring brings hope for the summer, and we're all looking towards that at the moment. And the seasons, yes, there is going to be a winter. We've all had our winters. We've all had that, you know, maybe a terrible childhood or a bad, terrible car accident or lost a business or marriage, relationship breakups. We've all had that stuff. Very few people have got to be as youthful but aged as us and not have had some kind of experience. And it's how you claim your power out of that. So you learn a lot about balance from seasons, from seesaws. We know that we see them in the parks all the time. We need to balance it up. And also I taught maths for a while, from algebra. What you do to one side, you need to do to the other. So you've got to balance it up. And from that balance, you can look at it and find life in problems. I like to call it flip. We've run a couple of videos, Christine, Julia, and myself, on how to flip problems. Find life in problems, because you can have those problems and you can put them on your head and another one on your head and another one, and they're just going to weigh you down. I know for a long time I walked bent over with slumped shoulders and people are always noticing it. But now that's because I was walking around, poor Monica, with all these problems. But now I use those problems as a stepping stone to move our way up. And I know with what Christine's gone through, and Julia and I are fortunate enough to know Christine Rankin, the person, very well. We quite often like to talk behind her back about how incredibly resilient she is and totally unaware of what happened to her. But she does own that. She owns, this terrible thing happened to me. She unpacks it. And she'll say, well, it was the media, it was politics. She was running the most successful social welfare, working income, call it whatever you like, as organisation in the world. People were coming to visit. She was going over to different countries to show them what to do. Where was that in the newspapers? So remembering to get your perspective on it. I've got 3 different points of pain, points overcoming pain. It's in my book, which I just happen to have here. Absolutely.
Buy that damn book.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
It's just looking at getting that balance. And I love what Julia was saying the other day too, about filtering in the information. And she's got a story about she was going to be building a large house and now she's building a smaller house. So now she's changed to social media to look at tiny homes and small homes and how awesome they are. So you do get to choose. So have that wallowing, get that balance in place, find life in problems. That's how you can claim your power. And from that, take those problems and use them as stepping stones to move forward. Is it easy? Heck no. Does it take time? Yes. But I challenge anyone that's listening to think of one thing that's hugely valuable in their life that wasn't hard work. I talk about language. I wish we wouldn't use hard work because it sounds like someone's going to slap us around and punish us. But it's really about a positive opportunity. So you can say, this sucks. And then how can I flip that?
Absolutely. And what I do is I talk about reframing that negativity into an opportunity. And look, I'm glad that you talked about permission, because I remember sitting on that couch and I gave myself permission to cry and be sad for one day. What a waste of energy. But I did that for one day. And then I got off the couch and I got out of my own way because I was really in my own way. And, you know, when I talk to people, I say to people, I had 2 options in life. I could have gone bankrupt, and that would have been an easier option, but I chose not to. And I didn't go bankrupt because I felt a conviction about what was wrong, and I felt a conviction to stand up for what was right. And I can tell you it was the hardest road to go down. And would I do it again? Heck yeah. I still haven't learned, obviously, but I would. But what it means is that I'm more real to people when they actually meet me. They know that I know what adversity looks like. I down the barrel. And, you know, even when I was 27, I had an aneurysm and I lost a hearing in my left ear. And I remember the specialist saying to me, well, you know, relook at your life, stay home and have children. And I'm just like, what? I hadn't even thought about having children yet, you know, and I guess, you know, for me, the way I go about it is I go 10 times harder, whether that's a right thing or a wrong thing, it works for me. But, you know, ownership is really important. It's owning your own behaviour. And I just want to touch on some things with you, Julia. Like Monica and I we were conversing on LinkedIn with some posts over the weekend, and what a tragedy with what's happened out your way in West Auckland, actually, with Countdown, and how people are taking on board, you know, that it's a culture, a race, a religion, but what they're not getting is it's one person, one evil person, and you don't need to own the behaviour of that one person. You don't even, you know, saying that it's affecting you and you know, but why do people do that? Why are people actually going straight to that whole blame? What are your thoughts around that, Julia?
Great question. We go to that stuff, and I say we because this is a human issue. We go to that stuff because it's easy. We want to, when things don't make sense, we get cognitive dissonance. Our brain says this and that do not add up together. And so we want to find a quick pathway where we can immediately go, okay, this makes it make sense. So if we can take that person and categorize them and put them in a box and say, look at them over there, that's easy. And what it does is it makes our brain feel relaxed, because now we're like, oh, solve the problem, sorted that out. But life is not like that. All the stories we've heard today show that life is nuanced, life is complex, right? And so I think that while we immediately want to just categorize, blame, you know, this is where huge amounts of racism and all those things come in. While that's an easy path to take, a more complex and yet a more productive path is actually to think below the surface, to actually go, you know, what else was going on behind the scenes, you know, what was happening for this person, putting yourself into someone else's shoes and actually going, well, I can't imagine. Sometimes we want to jump to saying, well, I think this and I'd do that, and if I was the police, I'd do this, that and the other. And actually my best piece of advice is to say something more along the lines of, I have absolutely no idea. If I was in charge, I don't know what I'd be doing. You know, that must be so complicated and so complex, and they were all trying really hard to keep us safe. And that guy, you know, the awful situation. But yeah, we want to judge and we want to jump, but let's continue to see that this is a tragedy rather than something that we're going to get on board and feel like we've solved the problem in our own little keyboard warrior way.
And if I could just jump in with you, Christine, I mean, you've worked with transformational leadership. I mean, I think you've earned your right to be able to speak on that with 6,000 employees that you looked after. But being a leader, you know, most people think leadership is from the front. I always say to them, you've got it completely wrong, and you might have a difference of opinion. But for me, leadership is in the front, to the side, and to the back. To the front so people know where they're going, to the side so you're going with them, and to the back so that you've got a pathway of people coming through. But in terms of leadership, not necessarily wanting to go back to the awful situation, but you've dealt with some awful situations. How do you cope with leading your team through that? Because it's really important they see a really good role model.
I think I'm probably quite weird because I love when things go, or not necessarily go wrong, but when there's a big challenge and something unexpected happens, I think that's the most exciting time in leadership. And yes, you do need to lead from the front. There's times you lead from the front, but you've got to let your people shine. You've got to love them and tell them how good they are when they're good, and tell them when they're not good. But, you know, you become a greater leader by letting other people shine. They're your people. You're giving them this opportunity. And, you know, you can work out anything together. One person might not, I've never, ever been the visionary, but I take someone else's vision and by golly, I will work and work and work until that vision is a reality, because I'm an enabler. And I think that leaders, real leaders, transformational leaders, as I call them, are, that's exactly the way they operate. But I always operated through my people. It wasn't me. It was me that set the scene with them. But then it's about letting them work it out and supporting them every step of the way. And one of the biggest things in transformational leadership is acknowledging people's skill. You do it privately, you do it publicly at every opportunity, and New Zealanders are not very good at taking that. They're very embarrassed and this humble rubbish that we go on with all the time. You've got to acknowledge when people are good and feed them as often as you possibly can with the good things, because people will die for you when you recognize and value them and love them. And that is the real key to leadership. And the reason we're not very good at it in New Zealand is because we're not in touch with our emotions. You know, I was told by the Prime Minister at the time that my leadership style was dangerous because my people would do anything I asked them. Well, the reality was that's called leadership. Your people will follow you anywhere when you treat them the right way. But this particular government saw that as a very dangerous situation.
And dangerous because they actually didn't understand leadership themselves, perhaps. And
absolutely.
I love what you're saying. I always talk to people about providing positive feedback in real time. Don't store it. You know, don't leave it till that review period. Totally. And announce all the negative stuff that goes with it. Deal with everything in real time, but don't even talk about negative feedback. Don't even look for an excuse, because if you're doing that, then you actually haven't understood how to get the best out of your people. So Monica, I'm going to jump in with you. So you mentioned flip before I could talk about it, and I was going to ask you what part of the jandal did Organised Chaos have from here to there, because you've got flip and you've got flop. So we've covered off flip. So talk to us about flop.
Yes, the flip-flops. This is a combined effort with a wonderful man called Nigel Risner. He's one of the UK's top keynote speakers. I'm privileged to have had some mentoring with him and got to know him. So from finding life in problems, you find your flops, which are your fundamental life operating principles. For example, for Christine, one of her life operating principles, and it's something she's very good at, is the way that you authentically compliment people. Now, she's got that in our tool that we have available for anybody that wants to work through with their teams, is how to authentically and properly institute complementing each other. So it's not, oh, I really like your glasses, your eyes, your hair. I like the way you did that. I mean, even that is a good start. I like the way that you is a really good starting line. I'm big on communication. So by saying that, I like the way that, people will stop because they're hoping to hear their name. So that's just a little tip, but Christine's is far more effective, and because she has the experience. And just with what you were saying before too, so from your flips, you find your fundamental life operating principles, and they're your anchors that you can hang on to. So when we hear about the Newland tragedy, we can go back to looking at it instead of just reacting with our natural fight, flight, fawn, and getting really involved in that. We can go to this wonderful word, responsibility. And I think that's a really misrepresented word as well. Responsibility sounds like, oh, right, it's your responsibility. Go do some hard work and be responsible. It's like, scares me. I want to have fun. You know, I want to enjoy what I'm doing. So, but responsibility is simply this. It's your ability, and it's learned, and you have to work on it, to respond to a situation. So when the tragedy happened, and I do know after reading on LinkedIn, people immediately were freaked out, not everybody, and they reacted by going to their subconscious and previous history and the experiences they've had and said, oh, well, it must have been this race of people. It must be because of this whole religion. It must be because it's a West Auckland or whatever label, which I find I climb in and out of boxes and speak about labels all the time because they're dangerous. But when you can develop responsibility and ability to respond by looking at the three pops, your position of perspective? What are your points of pain on it? And I'm sure everybody living in Auckland has thought, gosh, I never expect this to happen at the supermarket. And then what are your patterns to overcome that? So I feel deeply for the people involved. I feel for the police and the incredible job that they've done. It's difficult to make laws, one size doesn't fit all to how we deal with this. So again, responsibility, just your ability, and it's crafted and it's learned by doing, as Julia talks about with her well-being, the wobbly points, and she's crafted an ability to deal with that. Christine has crafted an ability to deal with challenging moments in leadership. So learning to responsibility is just your ability to respond. And I've got this great word, which is pause. And I think that ties in with what Julia was saying as well. Just pause.
Monica, you keep stealing all my words. I swear to you that you knew everything I was going to say before I came on here. But I always talk to people about pausing. Just pause and reflect, because you do have time to figure it out. You don't need to react right here and now. And I'm glad that you talked about labels. That was another thing I was going to talk to you all about was, I mean, I'm an Aucklander, yes. My family are from the far north, yes. We've got a home also in the far north, and I keep hearing about Aucklanders and their disease, and yet, we didn't ask to get this. Unfortunately, we are a hub of New Zealand, and naturally, we're going to have a lot of people coming in here. And I had to switch off from some community groups because I was absolutely appalled to be, and I guess I went to that place that I tell people not to go to. I was embarrassed to be an Aucklander, and I had to just switch it off and just filter it out, and that can be quite damaging. And I say to people, be really careful what you're putting out there, especially when people can look at your profile. So you put up a negative comment and it's really bad. They look at your profile and they find that you're somebody that, has a business, and then you start wondering about why people aren't coming to your business anymore because you've gone and put yourself out there with this statement. So coming back to communication, which is something that you're really big at, Monica, and we actually met a few years ago at a networking event, and what really resonated with me was that you communicated directly with me. You wanted to thank me for sharing my story, and you wanted to you actually basically saying, celebrate it, celebrate where you've come from. So communication right now is so important. Being in lockdown doesn't mean we go home and shut the door and wake up in 6 weeks. We need to communicate to our people, our clients, our employees, our family, our friends. Monica, communication. What's your top tip?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I was just going to say that it's an interesting part of our culture, you Aucklanders. Well, I don't find that we're all exactly the same, but for people that are not living in Auckland, and I've definitely had that experience for a number of decades not living in Auckland, that it just, again, it's a reaction. It makes people feel a little bit safer. Keep those Aucklanders, lock those Aucklanders down. It's just a way of making them feel safe. And I personally don't mind if people want to say that it's that Monica Moore in Auckland that's causing all these issues, because if it makes someone feel better, I don't mind at all. But it's just a safety mechanism, because we are all New Zealanders. And what's interesting about us is that it's really unusual for about 30% of the population to all live in one place. But we do, and that's how it is. And you Aucklanders and your house prices, you Aucklanders and your traffic, you Aucklanders and your whatever it is, and your disease, your virus, your Trump and the China virus, for example. I mean, that's that same thinking. And you can choose to have that mentality if it makes you feel better. And sometimes it's good to react and quickly blame somebody. Quickly blame somebody, and then you're okay, and then you have to then respond. So you can choose.
My mother used to say, she's 87, and she used to say, Catherine, as long as they're talking about you, they're leaving someone else alone. And I used to think it makes me feel better, but over time, as you get older, you go, yeah, it does actually. Christine, I'm going to jump in with you, Deputy Mayor down in Taupo District Council there. You had an incentive for people to move to Taupo and start businesses. Is that still on the table with our wonky bridge?
It sure is. But look, there are issues with it, of course, like everybody else. We've got housing issues. You know, people come here and they want to live. Why wouldn't you want to live here? But they want to live here, then they can't find somewhere to live because we've got a real housing shortage like everybody has. So there are issues. But look, Aucklanders, wonderful Aucklanders, have been pouring into Taupō. And can I tell you, some of our locals won't like it. But the reality is Aucklanders bring life and excitement and a whole different attitude to the world. I love it. You know, they stop me on the street and say, how long have you been here? And we have this wonderful conversation about how great the town is, or the district, but all the other things we could do. They've got different expectations. I hate this thing in New Zealand. I'll tell you what, if I was the leader, I'd be saying we are one people. We have to love each other. We have to look after each other. I went to do a job in Invercargill once and they had a billboard leading out of town, and I can't remember the exact words, but it was like, good riddance to Aucklanders leaving Invercargill. And I said to them, what are you doing? These are the people who come here and spend their money in Invercargill and make your district, you know, worthwhile. But we do have to see ourselves as a nation, and we've never really done it. And we have to look at all the things we've got to offer. I get furious, and I'm not very nice when I'm furious, when I hear people criticise Auckland. It just sends me, I don't take it. I don't think good on you. They get it. It's not on.
And look, especially now with the borders closed, we need each other right now. I mean, every company, to tourism businesses, they all need everybody.
Absolutely. We rely on the Auckland market, so it's a tragedy for us when Auckland is locked down. And I've got precious grandchildren in Auckland. I can't see them. I can't touch them. I can only see them on a screen, and that's not the same thing. But I love Auckland. I spent a lot of my life there, and it's a fabulous city, and we should be damn proud of it. But you know, if you're going back to communication, just those little jibes can really start to hurt. And we're not separate, we're one.
And I like how you say we're one, because we are one, and we're all from the same cloth, and we need to celebrate that. We used to be the island off the coast of Australia, but now we're New Zealand, Aotearoa. People know who we are. And Julia, that, you know, from a mindfulness point of view, you know, what's your theory around communication right now?
I had a funny situation about that whole thing last year. So we actually spent the second lockdown last year. We were living on the side of Mount Ruapehu. We were in Whakapapa. It was an amazing experience to live up there in a ski lodge. And I'd been invited down to Picton to speak at a beautiful women's event, and they didn't want me if I was coming from Auckland, but they were okay that I was living in Whakapapa because Auckland had been locked down. So I was experiencing this whole, like, don't tell anyone where you're from. And on the drive down, I said to my husband, I was like, now if anybody asks, where are you from? You can't say we're from, you know, we've got to say we live in Whakapapa, we live in Whakapapa, which we had been living in Whakapapa at the time. We sat down on this little boat, and this lady turned to me, the first person to ask me, and she said, where are you from? And I went, oh, Auckland. And they were like, yeah, and so he jabbed me in the ribs, and then I had to explain that we hadn't come there. But it was that thing of actually understanding what it feels like to sometimes be, you know, in the minority, and to not want to claim your background, or to claim your power, or to claim your heritage, and suddenly pretending that you're someone that you're not. And I actually think that it put me into a position as a minority group all of a sudden to understand what it's feeling like for other people to be, perhaps at times, to be in minority groups. All three of us in Organised Chaos have been single mums at some stage during our during our lives and during our journey. And talking about communication and labelling, I know for me one of the big things was actually to call myself a single mum, not a solo mum, because it felt like solo mum had connotations, and I was like, single mum sounds hot. You know, she sounds pretty cool. And I wanted people to know I was single. But yeah, sometimes the way that we communicate and we talk about ourselves and the way we present ourselves does affect how other people come back to us. So, you know, at this time, as we've divided as a country in so many different ways, if we in our small circles can continue to bring unity and show love and say, hey, you might have an attitude towards me, but I'm not going to flip that round and put that back onto you. I'm going to flip it on its head. I'm going to find life in that and say, you know what, if you don't want me, I still love you and I'm still going to find you there.
I can totally understand that. And, you know, look, I'm not for everybody, but I'm here if you need me. And that's what I say to people, you know, and more often or not, they come back. So, you know, so look, we're going to wrap this up. We're going to basically wrap it up with a quote out of Monica's book. If you're searching for that one person who could change your life, look in the mirror. So just one final comment from you, Monica, on that one statement.
Oh, absolutely. It always starts with you, but it's too frightening sometimes. I always wanted somebody else to solve my problems for me. It's somebody else's fault. And I just want to tell a very quick story that Julia promoted with what we've been talking about living in Auckland, is that my gorgeous, lovely oldest son now has got married to a wonderful woman called Danielle. And at the wedding, the mothers spoke. So I opened up by saying, that I am from Gore, because I'm originally from Gore down in Southland. Worst thing about that town is its name, because it's an amazing place. And Maria said, and I'm from Goa. Now, Goa and Gore sound so similar. They're in different parts of the world. We look completely different, but we are a very close-knit, loving family. We just adore Danielle and Maria. And this, I'm from Goa. It was so similar, but very different. It's really important to remember those languages and labels. And, you know, we just adore and love each other, a wonderful family as a result of it. So that's how I deal with it. If people want to call me in Auckland, oh, that Monica Moore, she's in Auckland, I'll take it if it makes them feel better. But and they're probably not the people I want to work with anyway. But yes, it all does start with you. It's the words that you say, the stories that you tell yourself. It's the well-being, how you look after yourself, as Julia is a wonderful practical well-being practitioner. She is amazing with what we have. We have first aid kits in our offices and our homes, but we really need to have a well-being first aid kit as well. And she's got lots of tips and tricks. And then the incredible Christine, leading the world in work and income, being able to offer the government money back because, oh, we've got these people being educated and trained, we're looking after them, they're able to run and manage their own lives. So yes, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, and it does start with you, and that can be really frightening and confronting. But with the practical wellbeing tips, learning how to use language, complementing and looking after each other. And I suggest that if you're at home and you're a team, we have a wellbeing or leadership and communication little tool that you could use and try it with your friends.
Awesome.
And of course,
stealing my words, Monica. You spy that damn dress.
Buy that damn dress.
It's got a medal. I quite often wear the medal around the house, and I was really disappointed when I was taking that dress for success that nobody thought that I was an Olympic medalist when I was wearing it. But why not be proud of it? New Zealand is a shocking.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got to stop that tall poppy syndrome and just sell
absolutely.
It. Yeah.
Don't talk about tall. I've got a little bit up because when I stand beside Christine and Julia, I do look like I'm more like a dwarf, which is quite interesting, but
very cute though.
I've claimed my power.
So Julia, just with you about looking in the mirror, any statements from you around that?
I think taking that time to be mindful and actually giving yourself a break. My tagline is always be kind to your mind. And if you're not going to be your friend, who else is going to do that for you? I think we show our kids by us being kind to ourselves, we demonstrate to them to give themselves a break, to be kind to themselves as well. I think particularly as women, we can be really hard on ourselves. So by looking in the mirror and actually going, you know, we got this. I love that concept. And actually being kind, giving ourselves some space. It's okay to take a break, and actually, you know, caring for ourselves is super important.
Thank you, Julia. And Christine?
Well, look, I think I've proved that you can cope with just about anything, I'm not sure everything, but hell, I've coped with an awful lot, and I'm still here, and I'm thriving, and I'm loving life. And I love being part of Organised Chaos because these two women are forces of nature. And, you know, I haven't met anyone like that for a long time. You find people you click with, and when you're given that gift, it is very, very, very precious. And I think we all need to look to that because, yes, it starts with you, but it starts with the people, it continues with the people who are around you. And, you know, women are not very kind to women. It is not women who supported my career. It was not women who supported me in my worst moments. And I look now at what women do to each other. We need to fix that. We need to really care about each other. And I have two people who really feed me, and I hope that I feed them, and I'm so grateful for them. So yes, it starts with you, but look to the people who really care about you. And thank you, Catherine, for the opportunity you've given us. That's wonderful. I appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Oh, look, no, it's my pleasure. I knew this was going to go longer. It's a pity we don't have all day to talk. But, Monica, you know, you and I are going to have a little word later about you stealing my thunder on a few things, but I learned 10 words a while ago, and those 10 words is, if it is to be, it is up to me. And I carry that as my mantra, and it's what I tell my children. And for those of you out there, you know, it doesn't matter whether you want an A life, a B life, or a C life, it's up to you, but don't expect to have an A life with a C effort. That's what I say to people. So no one judges you but you. Look after yourself, stand out of your own, like get out of your own way in terms of roadblocks, give yourself permission to wallow or to deal with the situation, and then just get on with it. And just know, if you are watching this, that all of us have been single hot mums, and not all of us are single anymore.
No.
I started my life 5 years ago, and so yeah, so we're off the market now, so you have to move on to some other single ones. But just really know that there are people here that are here for you, and my door is always open, and I'm real. I've been in your shoes. I'll continue to be in your shoes. And go to Organised Chaos on YouTube, watch your incredible funny videos. Hopefully next time we do this, we'll get Julia on singing, because I hear she's got the most.
Wow.
Amazing.
But ladies, thank you for this morning. And hopefully this has helped everyone start their week off with a shabam. And looking forward to hearing how the rest of your week goes. So have a great week, everybody. And from Auckland, Taupo, and everywhere else in New Zealand, lots and lots of love. Mwah.
Thank you, Catherine.
See you later, ladies. Bye-bye. Have a great week.